Hello friends, welcome back to another video, and today I am going to continue the how to make a video game in Unity series. So welcome to episode 2 of how to make a video game in Unity, and let's start. So in the previous videos we had made progress in making the player go forward. We added physics to the player and also made it go forward. And we also added a script to the camera that makes it follow the player wherever it's going. So now we can work with that. Today in this video, we will be making some obstacles for our player. So as you can see here, I have already made a I have already imported a Blender file into Unity. It is called Geometry Dash Obstacle Unity Import, and it is a 3D file, Blender file, and I can just drag and drop that file in the hierarchy of my build, and there we have it. What I made in Blender is now imported into Unity. I just dragged and dropped it. It is that easy. So now if I rotate it 90 on the Z90 and place it right here, there we go. We have our first obstacle just like that. Now let's add some color to this obstacle. But before that, we could align this properly with the platform. So where is that obstacle? So we're just going to go into this view, and remember I tap the cube to go into isometric view / 2D view. So I'm just going to place that there, and there we have it, our first obstacle. Now let's add some materials to this. So in prefabs we can create a new material, and we can name this obstacle triangle material. Now we can color this something like a dark blue, or maybe our player is blue as well, so maybe something like orange. So yeah, that's great. Now we can start working on the collision system to make the player die when it touches one of these guys. So I'm just going to make that smaller right there a little bit, and now I can just press Ctrl D to duplicate it and then move it right here. There we go. Now we have two of those guys. We could put them apart a little bit so that the player can jump in between them correctly. And that's it. We have our first obstacles. Interesting. Now we have to make a canvas. Now a canvas is basically a UI element, and this element handles UI objects like buttons, text, score, and all of that stuff. So I have named this main game UI right here because it is the main game UI, and this canvas will contain a button that will be responsible for making our player jump. So I can just right click on the main game UI and add UI button, and I can name that jump button. Now this button by default comes like this, which I do not like at all. Also, before we get started, click the canvas and in the inspector tab, change this from the UI scale mode from constant pixel size to scale with screen size, because constant pixel size means if I am on a computer, this is the ratio, so it will scale up to this only even if I am in a mobile now. So if we scale with screen size, the ratio of the laptop will be converted into the mobile screen size. So now let's also customize our button a little. So you can see a button by default has an element that is a text, which by default also says button. Now we can just remove this text, delete, and we can also make the opacity of this button to 0 so that we can see through it. Now I'm doing this because in Geometry Dash, as you may have seen, there's not this white kind of button popping up on your screen to make the player jump. It's just all around the screen. So if we can just, in Geometry Dash, wherever you tap, you can make the player jump. So I'm going to do that. So full screen. So in this canvas is basically the game screen whole thing. So wherever the player taps on the screen, for example, here, anywhere the player taps, the button will be activated and triggered. So now how do we make this button do something? By default, a button comes with this button component in here in the inspector. We can just click on this plus sign to add a function to this button. Now we are going to do that a bit later. For now, let's just go in the player and add another script named jump. And also in the assets, we can move this from assets to scripts. And now we can open this script. Let's wait for Visual Studio to open up. There we go. So at first, let's just delete the two using texts up here and also delete these functions. Now we have a clean new script. Now let's write some code. So first we could add some variables like public, rigid body, and let's name this RB like we did in the last video. Now we want the rigid body to add a force in the y axis, that is the up axis. So that's why we need the rigid body to add force, which will be the line of code rb.addForce. We'll get into that just a bit. And let's also make a variable that is a float, type float, and let's name this jump height. I hope I spelled height correctly. And now let's add a void update no. Now this void will be custom. Now how a button works in Unity is basically like I showed you here. You click on the plus sign and now there's a bunch of things you need to reference here. Not a bunch, just one. So which is what is the game object that has a script that needs to trigger this button. So if for example I drag and drop the player in here, you can see there's a script called jump in the player. We just added it a few seconds ago. So you can see that in here. So in jump, we can make a custom by default. These are all the default voids, by the way. We can add a custom void. For example, let's name this jump. And now, why is this underlined? Oh, jump player. So if we make a custom void, see there's no default function called jump player. So that is counted as a custom void. Now this custom void, if we make public, then it will be coming in here. So we'll go jump, and then it's not coming here because we've not saved the script yet. Once we save it, we can add the function jump and then jump player. And then whatever we write in here will be triggered when the player taps on this button, which is in our case the full screen. Now let's make the code for jumping. So we can simply add rb.add force, and we can put the force as jump height, not jump height. So this will be okay. So this will be x, y, and z, right? So z 0 0 0. Why did I put that? And that's it. So now this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, this is the z-axis. So we want to add force in the y-axis, that is the middle one, that is also the up-axis. So we are just going to write jump height in here, and now when the button is triggered, the Unity will add a force to our player in the y direction of whatever we set it to. So let's save the script and go back to Unity. Let it compile all the scripts. Now let's go into player, and you can see we have a rigid body and a jump height. So we can drag and drop the rigid body in here, and the jump height, let's experiment with this a bit. So maybe 1 at first, and now let's go in the jump button. We have already added the player in here, and now you can see we have jump player. Let's test this out. I'm excited. How about you? Let's see. It isn't doing anything. Okay, so the reason it isn't working right now is because we have to change the rb.addForce to rb.velocity is equal to new vector 3, then the axis. So that's because rb.addForce won't work when we are already adding force in the update in player movement. So every frame that rb.addForce is countered by this statement here. So instead of rb.addForce, we could just write rb.velocity, which is the speed and direction it is an object is moving in, is equal to new vector 3, which is a three-dimensional word. You get the point. And then the axis. So now let's save this up. Go to Unity, check if it's working. Let's crank the jump up to 5. Play. And yay, the jump is working now. Yay! Now let's add some colliders to the obstacles now and make them do something when the player hits them. Also, I think the player is a bit too small right now, so we can crank him up and at any time. How about that? That looks good. And now let's add some colliders to these objects. So at first add a rigid body again, and then a collider. So let's add a collider that is triangle collider. No, there isn't a triangle collider in Unity. Let's just go in physics and let's see all the colliders. So there's a box collider, capsule collider, character controller. Okay, these are all other things. So there's a mesh collider, there's a rigid body sphere collider, spring joint terrain collider, wheel collider. So I think we could go with the mesh collider. And let's see about that. So the mesh collider won't work here because we are working with triangles. Now there isn't really a collider for triangles. So for now we could just stick with the sphere collider. I don't know why I chose the sphere collider, but it's okay right now. So we could just customize this a bit. So, where is it? Nice. So top is already done. That's pretty much. Okay, great. Now this is just for now. Later we will find a way to make a collider for triangles. So let's just write some more code now. Okay, so this is the player collider movement. So player obstacle crash. Now what we need to do is in the obstacle we need to add a tag. Now I'm going to explain what tags are in just a moment right now. So let's open the script up, delete the two functions and also delete the two using texts. And now let's write public. Actually we really don't need any variables, so let's just start with an update. So here we could check if, oh no, we don't need an update here, we need an on collision enter. Now this is a certified void by Unity, public void. This checks if there's any collision. So if there is, we can find all the collision of it. So if, not if, we can just write here collision and then collision info. Now what I did here is the info of the collision is known as a collision parameter in the void on collision enter. Now I named it collision info. Now we can just write if collision info. So we are taking the info of the collision, self-explanatory, and if collision info dot collider, which is the object we have collided with, dot tag. Now tags, we can also write name, but name isn't that used or isn't that good because names can be different. Like if you're cloning obstacles, then the name may change to clone 1, clone 2. So instead of that, you can use tags, which is just like a name but doesn't change. So dot tag is equal to, I'm putting two equal sign because that is the compare method. If you put 1, that's like you're assigning something to it. 2 is equal to comparing. So if it is equal to, now in these quotation marks, enemy. So right now we are going to go and the enemy, we have the enemy. Why did I put that in there? So this is the enemy we put the collider on, and you can see the tag here up in the inspector. Now if you click the drop down, you cannot see the enemy tag here. You can just click add tag and plus sign and then name it enemy. Make sure you spell it exactly the way in the code or it would not work. Now that we've added the tag, we can go back into the object and name it as enemy. Great. Now we can check the spellings, enemy, and here as well enemy. Great. Now we can put some these here brackets, and now this anything that will happen in these brackets will be the result if the player has collided with the collider that has the tag enemy. So what do we want the player to do when we've collided with enemy. Maybe restart the level. So yeah, so for that is really simple. We can just write a line of code which is scene manager. Now you cannot it will be underlined in red because we need to reference it up here. So using Unity engine dot scene management, and here we can write scene manager is still showing red. Yeah, so scene manager dot get active scene, and then in brackets we can write, so you can see all of the things we can do with this scene manager. So we can just write scene manager dot get active scene build index, one sec, not build index. So scene manager dot load scene, not get active scene, load scene, and in here we can write the build index. So the build index is basically, you can go in Unity, you can select file, build settings, and here you can see the scenes in build. Now it's currently showing 0. I don't know why. So we have the sample scene. Yes, there we go. So this is the build index here, which is 0 for the sample scene. So to restart the scene, we can just load it again. So 0. That's it. So if this works correctly, let's test it. There we go, it restarts. That's great. Yay. So that was it for this video. I know it was kind of small, not really. So thank you all for watching, and we will surely continue this series. It is a really fun one, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like, share and comment, and also subscribe to my channel. We are really close to 70 subscribers, and thank you for all the support you guys give me. Stay tuned.